Well, I want your comment on something that I heard as I was walking to see a band. I can't remember which one it was. I was walking past three guys, and they were talking, and the conversation went something like, "Yeah, this festival's got capacity of 5,000, where other bigger festivals have got a bigger capacity." And one of the other guys said, "Yeah, that's because the bigger festivals won't let Stonedead get any bigger." I'd like your comment on that. I think I know the answer, but I just like something I heard. I thought I'll ask Chris about that.
Um, no, I think that the size we're at is down to our choice. We like what we do. I think because we're the 5,000-ish mark, we could go up a little bit more. It keeps things compact. It keeps things manageable by us. But the main thing is it keeps the atmosphere and the vibe just right. Because you'll have gone to festivals yourself where they've got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that initial vibe and atmosphere you had the first couple of years just disintegrates because the people who go to it later on don't understand the roots of it.
Mm.
They're just there because it's cool to go to a rock festival. It's like Monsters of Rock. At the time when we used to go to Monsters of Rock, it was sort of like a pilgrimage.
Hmm.
You went for the music, you
Yeah.
went with your mates. It was the same time every year. You'd get on the local coach and it'd take you down. You'd have your quarter-gallon container of best better and homebrew and whatever else your mate could concoct. Um, you got there, you'd sort of create your little sort of area where you'd sit most of the day. You'd be backwards and forwards going to the front, but you'd the camaraderie and sort of the atmosphere which that's created was irreplaceable. I mean, I remember going in. Well, the second year I ever went was 1994, and I went with one of me best friends, and we were sat waiting for Pride and Glory coming on the main stage. It was the first year that had two stages,
Mm, it was,
and,
yeah.
there was a group of lads sat in front of us, and they were from um, somewhere like they had like a West Country accent when they were all talking. And there was a group of other lads kind of came and they started shouting over at each other. And then they came over and they were from some other part of the country. And they were saying, "Oh, we missed you last year because obviously there wasn't one in 1993." And I was sat there going, "Obviously, you guys must meet every year, and it's stuff like that, which, you know, Monsters had, people would just come and sit and have a couple of beers and reminisce about previous years and talk about bands that we're all looking forward to seeing at Donington and obviously any tours, which because there was always tours announced at Donington for the
Yeah,
band that were playing and which
it was,
ones were
yeah.
going to go to and potential meetups and stuff. So that because everybody was like on the same page with the musical tastes, it was that camaraderie was there. And I think with download as good as it is, and you've got the five stages and stuff, there's a lot of kids started going there because it was cool and it was
Yeah.
hip to a rock festival, which is fine. But it also takes away part of the atmosphere and sort of the eats away at the ethos a little bit. So with what we do, we've got it, I think, just right at the minute. And as long as we can
Yeah.
keep that mixture as it is, we'll be fine. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't say other festivals because I think there's only Bloodstock and Download in the same category. What are bigger,
All right, yeah.
and I
I
wouldn't
don't know the
fancy.
capacity on other festivals, you see. I didn't know about Planet Rockstock and that kind of stuff. I just thought it was a weird conversation. I
Yeah,
just thought I'd
I
get
don't
your
know. I
take
don't
on
know.
that.
But I mean, obviously, Bloodstock. I mean, you can go to Bloodstock now, and it's massive.
Mm.
Paul Gregory and Adam and Vicky, and the family have just created this thing from being in the assembly rooms in Derby to this gargantuan festival in Derby, which is sort of now like world renowned.
Mm.
It's sort of basically like the heavy metal Glastonbury, so to
Yeah,
speak. I mean, compared it's on par with the huge ones in Europe. Where like Download now, it's kind of like deviated and it's gone to all sorts of like the far corners of rock and
yeah. That's yeah.
other pockets. Um, so for us, if we ever thought about getting as big as Bloodstock, which I'm pretty adamant we won't be. There might be conversations in the future, I don't know, but as it stands, I wouldn't like to because of all the logistics and the size of the site and everything else what goes into it. I don't think I could handle the stress.
Right.
I mean, sort
Yeah.
of, it's just, yeah, there's a lot to think about if we went much bigger. And I think, as I say, we would lose the what we've got. I think the heart of the event would probably be damaged.
Yeah.
And if that makes sense, it's just, yeah,
I know you're not looking at getting it any bigger because every time we've talked, you've said no, you're happy with the capacity, but people must be thinking you sell out on the weekend of the festival. Surely you want to make it bigger to a bigger capacity to sell more tickets, but the answer's still the same, yeah. Just keep
yeah.
it where it is and at
I,
that level, yeah.
I mean, I remember, and this is like a different kind of analogy. Reed Niall Quinn, the footballer who used to be the director at Sunderland Football Club, um, and he was talking about when the football club first built the Stadium of Light, and the sort of the one a Crestwell wave, and they were doing all right. And at the time, the capacity was 42,000, and to get a ticket, it was like you couldn't get one for love nor money. So if you managed to get one, there was a buzz because you were like, "I'm going to the match. I've got a ticket to see Sunderland," and that carried on into the ground, and the atmosphere was electric because everybody wanted to be there. So they increased the capacity by another 7,000 seats. And although they were filling up, there was always pockets of seats, so you could always get a ticket. And the atmosphere struggled because of that, because the buzz wasn't quite there. And I
Right.
always remember that conversation, like extract from the book, and thinking, yeah, you're right, you're exactly right. If the buzz goes because there's not a clamour for tickets, then maybe it's going to have a negative impact. So, yeah, well, as I say, we're happy. Obviously, we're trying to keep everybody happy with how we do with the tickets, and put them on sale when we do, and keep them reasonably priced. But we're never going to please everyone because there's people who just we just can't. And we'll try to give everybody as much notice as possible, saying we will have the tickets on sale on the day, which we have done for the last 8 years.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll put the payment options in there, and yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if there is a solution, and we're just because the clamour for tickets is probably always going to be now greater than the capacity.
Yeah.
And the
No,
wait
that's
the waiting list is like through the roof again, which it was last year and the
yeah.
year before. So yeah,
Yeah,
a
that's
bit
what I
of
was just
a
thinking, you see, that everybody's gonna want to go and it's demands that outstripping supply. Just but yeah, no, for me, just keep it as it is, Chris. I love it there. So your like contract with Newark Showground, that's for the next few years, X number of years, is it, to keep it there?
yeah, yeah. The everything's tied in for a few years. We're trying to work 3 year contracts with everybody. The stage company, the sound company, the people who do the videos and various other things. Um, so everything's tied in for a few years. The showground love us. They're very hospitable and very helpful. And like if we've got a couple of problems, that they're always very, very happy to try and help us solve them or throw a solution our way. So that we've got a really good working relationship with them. So that's fantastic.
Hmm. So on that idea, looking towards the future, 2027 then. You already working on 2027? Got some bands penciled in or even inked in?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean the way we're working at the minute is obviously we'll be looking at bands for next year. And it might not be possible. So normally the conversation either from myself or the agent or the management will come back on, but we are available for 2027. So we'll go, right, okay, well let's talk about that next year. Like festival season next year for the next year. And we'll try to get bits and bobs tied in. Where there's bands who we've spoke to, and that they basically put the sword at us and said, we will play Stonedead. And so it's like, okay, let's put that in. So there's lots of things going on for 2027. There's
Mhm.
things confirmed, and there's hopefully a few more things going to be confirmed.
So
And
without mentioning names, how many are confirmed? How many are penciled in?
More than one, less than nine.
Like your style. Like your style. So, and going on from that, the year after 2018, 2028, I mean, the big one, because you started in 2018, the 10-year anniversary. That won't be long away, mate. Are you starting to plan for that one?
Yes.
What's you're not going to tell me I know, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's your
I
big
mean,
plan?
uh, well,
Just a
touch
little
wood.
snippet. Go on.
Hopefully, make it the best of the best of the best we can do. So, um, obviously, the policy's always been no repeats for 5 years.
Yeah,
We've practically managed to get no repeats bar massive wagons
yeah.
for going up to 8, 9 years. So I think we might have to sort of change tact and go for quite a few repeats.
Ah, right. Good, good. If any bands that you've mentioned recently are coming back, I'll be all there, mate. I was gonna love that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to get do like sort of a greatest hits of
Yeah,
Stonedead.
wouldn't it?
So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's bizarrely, I had a guy email on what day we at Tuesday. I think it was Saturday or Sunday, and he was putting a band forward, and I was like, "Great band, love them, but fully booked for 2026." And he's like, "What about 2027?" I says, "Well, most of the mid billing bits all done, which is where this band would be." And he said, "All right, what about 2020?" And I'm like, "2020, it's off nothing for 2020." And he's like, "My God, how far advanced are you booking?" I was like, "Well, 2028 is literally just blanked off because I've got other ideas for that." And obviously because you haven't played Stone Dead before, it's not going to work at the minute. That plan might change. So yeah, we'll
So
see what
definitely
happens.
something special then for us to look forward to for
Yes.
2028.
We'll try to make it special every year, and I'm hoping that when we'll start talking to the powers that be, they'll all sort of be like sort of clamoring and want to have a chat. There's quite a few bands. The second they walked off stage, and we've had a conversation, it's like, when are we coming back? You know, we had uh, this year just gone was one guy who will remain nameless. Because I don't want to like ruin any surprises. And he was literally like clamoring. He said, "When you've got to get us back? When you come? When can we come back?" And I was like, "Well, see." And then I think it was a couple of weeks later. The management were like, "When can we have the guys back on?" Because that was just phenomenal. It was like, "We'll see." And then started talking about other bits and bobs, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, let's try and make this work." So the in the main, I think the majority of bands we've had on would love to come back. Well, I would like to think all of them who've played it would want to come back, but I think one or two has possibly not had the best of experiences through reasons beyond our control, so it's kind of dampened their enthusiasm, so to speak. But you never know. They might look at photographs and videos now and go, you know what, like we need to have another pop at this. So let's see what happens.
Brilliant. I should be there watching, mate. So we spoke last year. So I've interviewed you before and doing a little bit of research. I had pop a few other videos, interviews that you've done. You often get asked the same question, so I've tried to avoid those. How did it start and all that, and I did that last time anyway. So, is there a question that nobody asks you that you think, oh, why don't they ask me about this?
Well, not really, because like a lot of the interviews do tend to be different, like you're doing as well. I mean, so what I did one with Ready to Mosh the other week, and the question was, if you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
All right, what
And
would
I
it
was like, I
be?
was, I was, I was like, all right, yeah. And then it was like a case of, and when you died, who would you come back and haunt? So I was like, God, you're putting us on the cosh here, like. So it's questions like that, which they kind of throw you, and you've got to think about them a bit because you're not expecting them. So you kind of looking all like sort of like vacant and like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that one. But if you said, what was your favorite act from like 2018, I'd be like, oh well, So it's nice to be kept on your toes, but it's also sort of like when you get the curveballs, you're proper. I don't know. You've got us in a corner. So most of the interviews, like yourself, are different and the fresh, and they're nice to do. It's nice to talk about Stonedead and get like sort of your opinions and thoughts on it, because ultimately we need to be knowing where the likes of you are coming from, and what you think of what we're doing, if the things which you'd like to see, and like if we can do them. So yeah, it's all good.
Okay. So I've just sort of a question for you, mate. Which was your favourite Monsters of Rock then? Was it your first one?
So I did 92, 94, 95, 96, and then we did the indoor ones and the one which was at Milton Keynes. But it's like everybody, it's always going to be the first one, which was
Yeah.
92.
Mm.
And it was just because, like, I'm a massive Iron Maiden fan and they were headlining, but Skid
Yeah.
Row were always my second favourite band as a
Hmm.
kid. And I loved Slayer and I loved Thunder and I got into Wasp and the Almighty. Um, so that was probably the one which sort of like I look at with sort of like rose tinted spectacles, and sort of that it was just walking through the gates was almost like sort of the gates of heaven, walking up to the pearly gates. Because when you used to do it back in the day, and you'd come through the main gates where the little castle turret thing is, and you'd go into the little tunnel
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
the track, and then you'd come out with the vendors, and then the stage would just appear as you come over the hill, and like you just see this sea of people and the flags and the denim and the leather and the aromas. And I'm not talking Brutinol Spice. I'm talking the other aromas.
Yeah.
And then just seeing everybody who was there for the same reason you want to watch the bands. And as a kid, I mean, 'cause I must have been one of the youngest there when I was like 14-year-old, and just to sort of see the sea of people in the stage, and the bands on it on the screens, and the occasional bottle fight, which boys and girls back in those days, there were big huge
Yeah.
containers, and when you got one of those launched sort of like 60 feet in the air coming at you, it was pretty scary times.
Yeah. My
But yeah,
first one was my first one was 90, and that'll always be my favourite.
yeah.
The things that you said, going under the track in the tunnel and then coming out, and I didn't realise before I went you could actually go all the way up to the Dunlop tyre. Obviously seen them in motor racing and that, and on shots of Monsters of Rock, but never knew you could actually go there, and being there was absolutely brilliant. And you're saying about the bottle, I just remember picturing it. There was never something not up in the air. It was like a sea. One would go up, the other would come down. Brilliant.
I remember there was a guy passed out in front of us, so I was there with my older brother, Colin, one of his friends, his girl, both, and then both the girlfriends, and my brother's girlfriend. Sorry, Helen, if you're watching, was quite well to do, very, 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 very proper. And so this whole experience was probably blown out of mind a bit too much. And there was this guy, had been staggering around, and he passed out directly in front of us. There was a group of lads literally jumped on him, whipped all of his clothes off him, so he was bollock naked, and everything just was getting launched to the stage. So his trainers, his socks, his t-shirt, jackets, undercrackers, he was starkers, absolutely starkers. And so he's in this field unconscious. And all I could think of as a kid, because this is like the naivety of kids going, what happens if his car keys were in his jeans pocket?
Oh yeah,
How's he going to get home? And as an adult, I'm thinking, oh, it's just as well because he was absolutely chemist. And then there was like these three ladies came along and just like got loads of plastic bags, bin liners, and made him like little trunks and socks. So he looked like a caveman staggering around. and then he kind of like waltzed backwards and forwards and then collapsed in front of us again and like kind of grabbed onto my brother's girlfriend's leg and she was like screaming like, "Oh, get off me!" And at this point, I thought this was hilarious. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's just those little things which they're not music related. They're just like sort of daft things.
yeah.
And I always wondered what happened to that bloke if like if that was his last Donington and he wasn't allowed to go back and his wife kicked off because he'd lost everything.
Maybe he's watching. Maybe he's been to Stonedead because he's heard it's
In
a
fact,
taste of the old monsters of rock.
in fact, you've got a bit of a look of him. I'm joking.
Well, I didn't like to say. So finally, Chris, it was round about this time we spoke last year, and I found out that, like me, you're a fan of Christmas. Are you getting all sorted for Christmas? What's going to be happening in the Sumby household at Christmas?
Well, I mean, our daughter's 3 and a bit now, so she's kind of got the gist of like Santa and like the stuff he can do. But it's also good because it's you can threaten her with sort of Santa's helpers.
Yeah,
So when she's misbehaving, say Santa's helpers are watching. So family time. I mean, I obviously work in a school, so things I'll be getting geared up in the first couple of weeks of December. We'll have lots of Christmas parties in school. I think I was looking at the schedule today, and we've got 2 weeks of just Christmas. It's either Christmas concerts, carol singing, or Christmas parties back to back for 2 weeks. So that's going to be great. And then by the time we finish for Christmas, spend time with the family. Uh, and just have a wonderful, wonderful fortnight off and hopefully Sunderland will get a couple of wins.
all
Which is,
right, you're not watching football this tonight, are you? Like you
I'm
was
not,
last
no,
time.
no. Fortunately, it's international way. Unfortunately, it's international breaks. I remember last year, Liverpool were playing Newcastle, and I was
That's right.
cringing because Newcastle were winning, and they drew in the end.
Oh,
So yeah,
also, we were supposed to talk last week, but you was at Saxon. How was the Saxon gig?
unbelievable.
Yeah,
Absolutely on fire. We got there just as Dirk Schneider were finishing their set with Fast as a Shark. But I mean, Newcastle City Hall is a fantastic venue. They've took the seats out for the rock gig, so it's a nice sloping floor, a little bit like a smaller version of Brixton Academy. So when you're at the back, you can still see because obviously it's theatre seating, and they put little crash barriers in, so if there is a surge, there's not going to be any accidents. But going back to Saxon, phenomenal set. They played Wheels of Steel, all the classics. Biff was on fine form.
yeah,
The production looked really, really good. So it was, yeah, it was just, and it was nice to see them again as a fan rather than they've been running around all day,
yeah,
getting stressed and pulling your hair out and just getting to that point and just like crying out of just sheer emotion because you were knackered, which we did at Stonedead 2024. There's photographs where I'm sat with Neil Maynell and his wife just in front of the screens at the front and quite looking quite emotional.
mm, yeah. Well, I'm glad you had a good time, mate, and I hope you have a nice Christmas.
Yes, you
And if
too.
I don't speak beforehand, I will see you in a field in August. Thanks for joining us here on Morning Rock Out, Chris.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, mate.